Hi, everybody who's watching this not live. Everybody who's making this. All right, everybody who's making this. There it is. Looking for sound settings. Well, there's no way to turn it up. I know this mic is a really good mic, but it's not very powerful. So I was hoping to find a way to turn it up, but there doesn't seem to be. Okay. So anyway, anybody who's watching this video, and I'm waiting for people to show up, but of course the Federal Reserve is a targeted keyword, so it might take a while. In the meantime, I'm just gonna watch some of the videos I usually watch from some of the people I usually subscribe to. No copyright infringement is intended, um, but it's part of the entertainment, and we'll just consider this like an introduction, okay? Until we get some more people. Um, Unfortunately, oh, I okay, I see. I was going to say, unfortunately, I don't know how to see if there's anybody here. I see one person. Hello. I'm going to just go. I'm going to be going through my subscribers and watching a couple videos. The audios are fine on those, so I'm not very visual subscriber. I subscribe to informational content. So let's. Or if you have a question, I'd be glad to answer it. Just put it in there. Ha, shalom. Well, God bless. I think that means about the same thing, right? Okay, I just finished watching Mark Dice, and so anyway, I'm going back to my subscriber list. I don't know how to show you the screen I'm looking at. I don't think I have the software capability to do that. If you've never heard of him, this guy I've subscribed to, he's pretty much stays inside the box, but he does political commentary. He's very good at like inside the box political commentary. Um, he doesn't talk like about the Federal Reserve or a lot of stuff that other people talk about that are banned keywords. Let's put it that way. So that's one thing. Getting views on this may be difficult because Mexifornia. How funny! Uh, got a smile out of me, Anna. That's pretty good. Okay. So I was going to listen to a Sticks and Hexenhammer video while we're waiting for more people. Uh, but I don't know. It's hard to find decent videos now because YouTube censors everything. I guess the United States is threatening a naval blockade of Venezuela. I don't know. Why don't we just leave them alone? It's, that seems to be the smartest solution, doesn't it? Just leave them alone. Ah, how frustrating. Are we going to go into another war? Oh, I don't know. For the new visitor, we're just going through. Maybe going to look at some of the videos I watch. Um, Anybody follow QAnon at all? Hmm. So anyway, all right. Well, let's. I don't can't find any good videos. Nothing that I think anybody would enjoy. Yeah, I think the world police has more to do with enforcing the debt than anything else. And what I mean by that is making sure that U.S. Treasury bonds maintain their ratings, and basically we enforce our debt on the rest of the world with military power. So, and that has a lot to do with what we were going to talk about, which is the Federal Reserve. So we might as well start talking about it. Does Venezuela have a privately owned central bank? That's a good question. I don't know the answer to, by the way. Um, I really don't. I could Google that right now. Is Venezuela central bank? Like, see, all countries have a central bank. It seems. It The question is whether they're privately owned or owned by the state. Okay, central bank ownership. Central Bank of Venezuela is its title. I'm not getting anything on ownership. Yeah, doesn't say anything about ownership. So I don't know who owns the. Well, it says they have a central bank. Central Bank of Venezuela, Banco Central de Venezuela, BCV, is the central bank of Venezuela, maintains a fixed exchange rate for the Venezuelan bolivar, and since 1996 is the governing agent of the clearinghouse system, including whatever that is. Well, we know it's a note clearing system. Let's try owned by. Try to match up some text on some page somewhere. I'm searching Venezuela Central Bank owned by. I'm not getting a match on those words. In other words, is it a Rothschild central bank or is it a state owned central bank? Established in 1940, the U.S. has established sanctions against the Central Bank of Venezuela. Well, you know it's not allied with the Federal Reserve if they're establishing sanctions on it, right? So I believe, even though I can't find any information on it in the amount of time I'm willing to put on it right here and in front of a Google live stream, um, I'd have to assume that it's a state owned central bank and operates for the benefit of the state or whoever owns the state. Um, So I don't know, but I would have to assume that Venezuela doesn't have uh, an allied central bank. In other words, one that works with. Well, they won't work with them because there's a sanction on their central bank. So well, no, the Fed is government, and I don't mean that in an ignorant sense, in that the Reserve is literally the government, but the Federal Reserve is a financial agent of the United States. And you can find that in numerous statutes. That is the exact term. All Federal Reserve member banks are uh, financial agents of the United States. So when you're dealing with any bank, any Federal Reserve bank, you're dealing with the United States through assignment. In other words, the Federal Reserve has been assigned that task by the United States and is operating as an agent of the United States. Does that make sense? You understand? In other words, it's an agency. It may be a privately owned company, but it's operating as an agency, right? Well, with Congress's jurisdiction, Congress enabled it. Congress can cancel it. See what I'm saying? Maybe a president has the power to do it. I don't know. I really don't. Um, well, it is authorized because of the nature of consent. In other words, if you're in the United States, here's the legal rationale, okay? And you can theorize a lot, but you have to understand the legal rationale. The legal rationale is that Congress serves at the behest of the people. So Congress is an agency of the people. As an agency, they have power of attorney to operate in your name. And that's what it's all about. That's where they get the authority. When you get a driver's license, one of the things that happens is a power of attorney transfer is enabled. So when the cop pulls you over, it's because you volunteered if you have a driver's license. So because to you went to the venue, the nexus, which is the state, and you applied with voluntary availment for a benefit from the state. When you applied, the documents activated a power of attorney. Same thing happens when you elect. If you register to vote, you know the what's the term? There's a specific term for it. It's called the doctrine of something, I think. But at any rate, if you vote, if you partake in a vote, then you volunteer to abide by the results. So the point is you can't you can't really talk about the Federal Reserve with any knowledge without understanding the legal aspects of agencies and powers of attorney, because that's what it's all about. Well, in what way are you a non-participant? You have a social security card, social security number. The thing is, yeah, whether you like it or not, you're pretty much trapped into the system because it's illegal not to be in the system. It's illegal to work, make money, and not pay taxes. So that's the real issue you want to address. And does it have to do with the Federal Reserve? Partially, maybe. The national debt has a lot to do with it because the national debt is huge and has to be serviced. That means the government needs to make money. Best way for the government to make money is to regulate things and make everything illegal. So you have to pay fines to do stuff. And a tax is more or less just a fine in one way or form or another. In other words, the United States is 20 what, 2 trillion in debt. So, you let your country get that far into debt. Now you have to pay the fine, which is whatever fines, taxes, and all that you have to pay. Unfortunately, it really isn't. The financial system is kind of imaginary, but the debt isn't. In other words, all the debts are secured by property, by collateral. So the debt isn't it's not fictional because actual value is transmitted for those notes. Because actual value is transferred for those notes, the debt is real. If you agree to fucking accept dollars in return for things and agree to pay them back, well, that's a real debt. I just, I like I said, it gets down to the doctrine of consent. What's the nature of consent? Did you do it? Well, then you consented. It's contracts, and people don't know that. And people like me, I lived and worked all my life without understanding any of this. Now I'm heavily vested in the Social Security system. I can't abandon that. That would be abandoning 7.5% of all the income I ever made in my life. And I'm not going to, it's just, it's silly to do that. So what I do suggest is you learn law and legal procedure, the nature of consent. It's all contractual. You just have to recognize that you're bound by contracts and operate from there. So anyway, what is the Federal Reserve? That's the whole point of this stream because it'll eventually become, when we're done, it's going to become a regular video. So what is the Federal Reserve? Federal Reserve is an agency. We already know what an agency. It's an assignment of a power of attorney to do something or things in the name of the assigner. So the United States government assigned the Federal Reserve, which is a private agency, just like everything else is a private agency. It's no different than any other organization. Social Security is a private entity. It's not private, but it's a corporation. It's a separate corporation from the government. The police department is a separate corporation from the city. It's incorporated under the city, but it's separate. So there's nothing unique about the Federal Reserve being a private agency operating with a government under a government agency. So the Federal Reserve was assigned the exclusive right to issue currency. Why? Why was it given the right to issue currency? Which is a good question. I don't know why. What was the rationale? What was the emergency? What allowed the Federal Reserve to be accepted? Oh, there's Sweetie Pie, crazy girl behind me. She's a shelter kitty. I rescued her at 1 year old, and she wouldn't let me touch her for like 5 months. She's all cuddly now though. He's kind of normalized, but only around me. Around anybody else, she reverts to feral behavior. Took a long time to bond with her, but we bonded. So anyway, that's my cat, and you'll see her running around in the background now and then. If she gets hungry, she'll actually be a sweetheart and come give me attention and stuff. But that's not going to happen till later at night because I feed her at night. So anyway, the Federal Reserve's proper title is the Board of Governors of the Federal Reserve. It is a corporation. It's a bunch of people. That's all the Federal Reserve is. Okay, just like any other corporation. At the top, there's a bunch of people, board of directors, whatever. That's what the Federal Reserve is. The Federal Reserve operates as the sole issuer of currency in the United States. So they print it all over out of thin air. Okay, and interesting chat. So you're getting a little side education over there, and I'm just dealing with the structure. What exactly is it? So it's this group of people who are given the right to issue currency, right? As long as the issue of that currency is secured by something real, which makes the currency of value and gives the currency its value because it's all backed by something real somewhere down the line when it was originally created. No matter how many hands it goes through, it's still attached to that original debt. Not literally, because the the money is fungible. In other words, $1 is the same as the other, so it doesn't matter exactly where that original dollar came from. Any other dollar will satisfy the debt attached to any other dollar. So so they're given the power to issue this currency. They issue the currency via Federal Reserve agents. Now, I'm not sure exactly what a Federal Reserve agent is. I can't picture his office or all the functions, the exact functions that this Federal Reserve agent will go through, but they operate as regional Federal Reserve agents. These are direct. These are the direct connections to the Federal Reserve. So you have the Federal Reserve at the top, and you have these strings connected to federal agents. Okay, these federal agents authorize the issuance of the currency. They're the ones that examine the notes that are handed over to the Federal Reserve in return for currency. So, the way this works is a bank will get a note. Then it's going to try to sell it among other member banks for Federal Reserve notes. It's going to offer a low interest rate, as low of an interest rate as it can, to other banks in the system. Now, these other banks are below. This is the ocean below the the Federal Reserve agents, who are the fishermen, right? And so they catch a note that comes up their way, but this note circulates through all the fish first, before it gets there, right? So the banks will try to sell it interbank first at a higher interest rate than they could get from the Federal Reserve agent. Okay, sorry. Once I know I can't turn up the mic. There's no option for it. So or at least I haven't found it yet. I'll try to keep it up. It's a good mic. It's just not very sensitive. I use it to record my drums. So yeah, it's a low intensity mic. Not really designed for speaking. It's designed for recording drums, which are considerably louder than the speaking. And with a low impedance mic and recording a drum, you don't get a lot of background. In other words, right now I've got the air conditioner going. It's like 3 feet, 4 feet that way, and I don't think you can hear it. So in one way, this mic is actually very good, in that there's the ambient noise isn't going to come through. So anyway, that's enough about my mic. Um, So you've got these sea of banks, and these banks have notes that are from you. Okay. So the bank gets the note and then it tries to sell the note for Federal Reserve notes. And if it can't find another bank, then it goes to the Federal Reserve agent, right? So what you have is banks that are willing to pay higher and higher interest rates to avoid going to the Federal Reserve agent, because the Federal Reserve agent sells at lower interest rates, right? In other words, when you go to a Federal Reserve agent and sell them the note, they don't pay you much interest on it. Whereas another bank might be willing to pay more for that note. And because they'll collect in the end run the higher interest rate that the consumer is paying. So 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 that's what they're doing. They're bidding these trying to stay as low as possible interbank, making a small profit off the note right now rather than waiting for the larger profit on the large loan. So some banks, however, want those notes to aggregate so that they can get really huge loans. You see what I'm saying? They want a lot of assets so they can, float their own bonds for larger amounts of money. One of the reasons. So anyway, that's how the system works. It's really that simple. The agency, um, a little lost for words. I'm getting a little tired. Um, the agency is vested into a group of guys that are called the Board of Federal Reserve, the Board of Governors of the Federal Reserve, which is the actual title of the Federal Reserve System. Okay, it's called the it's actually a legal name. The Federal Reserve System is what it's all about. So they're operating as a government agency. So yes, they're government agents. Agents is the exact proper word. Yes, they are. It's government enabled. Their job title is the Board of Governors of the Federal Reserve. Well, one of them had, there's a president and there's uh, some are appointed by the banks, some are appointed by the government. So I believe the chairman of the board is assigned by the government, but has to be confirmed by Congress and all that. So yeah, Congress could abolish the Federal Reserve anytime they want because the Federal Reserve operates under the aegis of Congress. I guess I'm not sure how to pronounce that word. Aegis. Aegis or Aegis. I'm not sure, but anyway, I spelt it for you so you know which word I'm talking about. So it operates under the umbrella of Congress. It was created by Congress. It can be dissolved by Congress. You know, but here's the problem. The problem is that all of these federal notes are secured by real property, and the debt is real. So the only way to get rid of the Federal Reserve is to pay the Federal Reserve off. Just pay them all the money. Give it all back. So, if you don't support the Federal Reserve, then advocate for paying off all the debts and not borrowing anymore. See what I'm saying? Oh, it can be done. You ever heard of slave labor camps? It can be done. I mean, it's not the debt is it's not it. You know, here's the thing. It can't be done in a constitutional system or in a system where you can't be locked up for debt. I say bring debtors' prisons back. You know, At least then people who owe money and can't get a job can get work and pay it off, you know. Although debtor's prison wouldn't be fair in a system where when the music stops there's not enough chairs for everybody. You know, like the housing market collapse, things like that. When when the big corrections come, the big crashes, the music stops. And when the music stops, it's math. Yeah, it is mathematically impossible for everybody to maintain their uh, debt service. So, in that respect, you know, and this may not even have anything to do with your responsibility or anything like that. You see what I'm saying? You know, if your factory closes because orders dried up, that's not your fault. But you might be the one that doesn't get a chair when the music stops. So, my advice is if you want to do your part to drop the Fed, then don't borrow money. Or if you borrow it from a friend and pay them the interest. You know, don't do paper loans. Unless they're private. Thing is, to survive in the world, for me to have this YouTube account and be able to run ads and have a super chat, I have to be in the system. I have to use and accept Federal Reserve notes. So I don't have any choice about that, really. Um, my choice is either be a part of the system and be able to operate within it, or don't be and not be able to operate within it. And to me, the choice is clear. You have to operate within the system. There's no other really way. And, you know, if it's like freedom of speech, if you take somebody's ability to speak away, what's left? If that person is absolutely determined to be heard, what's left? You see? So I just explained the Federal Reserve, by the way, and it can be done in 5 minutes. It's a bunch of guys empowered by the government to create the currency. They create the currency by issuing Federal Reserve notes for debt notes, promissory notes, the notes you sign when you take out a loan to the bank. That eventually works its way up to a Federal Reserve agent, who is the one who examines the collateral and authorizes the issuance of new currency, if necessary, to the bank to give to you. And then you have to pay back more than was issued. Now, I'm not sure, because I've actually never borrowed money from a bank. I've never felt the need to. So, interestingly enough, so I don't know if your promissory note includes the interest you're supposed to pay. In other words, is the amount the bottom line amount of that promissory note, the currency that is actually issued, does that include the interest? In other words, is the interest issued also, is my question. Because you don't get the interest, but you have to sign a promissory note that includes the interest. Yes, but your promissory note includes that interest. So my point being is that, yeah, probably I'd have to actually look at a bank contract, and they don't release those. So I've been able to look at a trust deed, which is also included with your mortgage and all that, but I've never actually seen the agreement for the issuance of the note, or actually seen a note that somebody has signed. Now that would tell me if the interest is issued because the note total might include all the interest. In other words, the bottom line, the the total bill, if it includes the interest, then see what I'm saying? If it includes the interest, then that interest would be issued also at the same time, and they just pocket it. And then have to, yeah. See, I'm not sure exactly. I don't know. So they may just pocket it, and you may be on the hook to pay it. So if you take a 30-year mortgage out on a house, you'll pay 3 times what the price is. I've calculated that out. So it's probably the same thing for a car if you take out a 30-year loan, which they don't give for cars, but you can get them for a house. And roughly, oh, by the way, what was I going to say? There's so many little facts that aren't really involved in how the Federal Reserve works, which is really simple. I'll say it again. Some guys issue some currency. Well, some guys are given the power to issue currency by the government, enacted by Congress and given agency by the government. So it is a government agency via agency. Interestingly enough. So Federal Reserve guys have the power to issue either printed or digital currency in return for notes. The notes are authorized by Federal Reserve agents who operate regionally. Then they issue to the currency to the banks in those regions in return for notes. And they'll offer various interest rates, usually pretty low because they want to encourage interbank. So Federal Reserve wants a bank to show that it's attempted to float the note to other banks, right, before the Federal Reserve agent will issue the currency. So the banks have to take your note and try to monetize it, right, by selling it to another bank at a low interest rate, lower than the final interest rate that you pay. So, and if a bank can't find a buyer for your note, then they can go to the Federal Reserve agent, and the agent will authorize the issue of currency, and your note goes to the Board of Governors of the Federal Reserve, and the currency is issued by secretaries, probably not by the actual Board of Governors of the Reserve. But people will work under the aegis of that group of people that are the Federal Reserve. So in essence, the Federal Reserve is a group of guys assigned by the banks and the government who issue currency and set interest rates for the currency they issue. That interest rate is called the discount rate, where banks go to the Federal Reserve window, the discount window. That's a Federal Reserve agent. So understanding how simple it is one of the keys to understanding it. And it really kind of doesn't really matter if the interest can get paid back or not. What the issue is that it's a central bank controlling the entire currency and the entire banking system as a monopoly. Didn't used to be that way. Before the Federal Reserve, banks floated their own notes. You could buy things with a Bank of America note or Florence Savings note, or a bank of this note, or a bank of that note. But after the Federal Reserve Act, they taxed non-Federal Reserve notes and pretty much drove the independent banks out of business, forced them to become members of the Federal Reserve through taxation. Now that's communist. So The Federal Reserve is basically a communist organization attempting to transfer the wealth and, more importantly, the assets of the people to the state via their agency of the Federal Reserve. Now, the reason I say this is the Federal Reserve is allowed to keep 6% of its profits. That's it. Take a wild guess where the rest goes. I'll give you a little bit. Where does the money in excess of 6% that the Federal Reserve makes go? Nope. The Board of Reserve, the governors of the Federal Reserve can keep 6% of the profits. Where does the rest go? If you're watching this after the live chat, then you can guess in the comments section. No, it doesn't go to the board. It's actually the biggest thing that illustrates who it operates as an agency of. First of all, the Federal Reserve is allowed to keep 6% of its profits. In other words, it by law. So it's under the aegis of the government right there. More evidence that it's operating as an agency of the government. Goes to the United States Treasury. You can read the Federal Reserve Act and verify that. I have. Keeps 6% of its profits. The remainder of the profits are paid into the U.S. Treasury. So 94% of the Federal Reserve's profits are paid to the U.S. Treasury. Well, effectively, it's deposited into the U.S. Treasury's bank account at the Federal Reserve, which is negative, way overdrawn. Make sense now? It's like if you were permanently overdrafted on your account, but were allowed to do so because you always paid the money. You always paid at least the overdraft fees, right? And you worked it out with your bank. Look, I'll pay the overdraft fees, but keep my account open. That's what is going on there. So the United States Treasury is the recipient of 94% of the Federal Reserve's profits. And all that does is counteract the negative a little bit because the United States account is negative. Bond sales go to the Treasury. So the United States sells bonds to raise Federal Reserve notes that are already in existence, collects those and deposits them in the Treasury. When they deposit them in the Treasury, it subtracts from the, oh my God, I hate negative numbers. It reduces the negative balance of the Treasury account at the Federal Reserve. You see what I'm saying? So it's like you own a bank and you have your own account there that's constantly overdrawn, but since you own the bank, you get away with it. Now, there is a misnomer that the entire debt is owed to the Federal Reserve. It's not. It's owed to anybody who owns a Federal Reserve. I mean, who owns a United States Treasury bond. So most of the time, the government is selling its bonds to people who already have the Federal Reserve notes and it's taking Federal Reserve notes out of circulation when it sells a bond, because those Federal Reserve notes are when it sells a bond, the recipient of the Federal Reserve notes it sells for is the Treasury. And the Treasury has a negative balance with the Federal Reserve because the Federal Reserve is the lender of last resort. If bond prices start to falter, the Federal Reserve will step in and support them and buy bonds, which is what happened in the housing recession. And in that case, yes, the Federal Reserve buys the bonds and puts the United States in negative with the Federal Reserve specifically. But not all debt, U.S. debt, is to the Federal Reserve. Everybody probably has municipal bonds in their 401k and treasuries, and foreign governments buy treasuries. You see what I mean? So it's not all owed to the Federal Reserve. It's owed to everybody. So my point being is that, and that's what I mean by the debt is real. If you bought a treasury bond, then the United States owes you the interest, and it owes you redemption on the maturation date. So that all this debt is real. The people that say it's not real it's not gold backed, but it's backed by other commodities. Your motorcycle, your car, your house, your boat, all the shit you want to sell when you go to Vegas and fucking roll the dice. I used to play music professionally. You see my drum set back there, part of it, and it's all kinds of equipment crammed into a one-room apartment. That's why it's all cluttered. But there was a line in one of our songs that went something like that. Sell your car, your house, your boat. The dealer. Sell your car, your house. Sell your car, your house, your boat. Take a chance and let them fly. The dealer's got you dry. So there's a song called Blackjack Fever, and that applies to what I was talking about before. Sell your car, your house, your boat. Buy a stock market bottom. That's my advice. Don't sell it to play in Vegas. Now, I just disagree with the fact that the Federal Reserve is the sole issuer of currency, and that other banks can't compete. See, what I believe, I'm pretty sure the full amount of money is issued for a promissory note, including interest. I may be wrong on that, but it doesn't matter, because when the United States sells a treasury bond, the interest is not created. They sell it for the face value and all the interest. So yeah, on the majority of the debt, the interest doesn't exist. So that's why I said if you borrow money for a house, whether or not the interest is created for that loan is kind of irrelevant. So it's a fact. It's a fact or fiction that really doesn't matter in the large sense, as far as that concept of the interest not being created, because when the United States Treasury sells a bond, it only sells it for the face value. The interest is not created. So on the majority of the debt, you are correct. The interest is not created. But I believe on some notes that it is. But that's just a belief. I don't know. I've never been able to examine an actual promissory note. They won't let you take one with you. And I've not been able to find one on the internet from a banking source. In other words, I wouldn't trust it to be a real promissory example of a promissory note unless I saw it at an actual bank website. Otherwise, I would doubt its veracity, because I'm very, very skeptical of everything I find on the internet. So it's one of the reasons I named my channel Verified News. My original intent was to take mainstream news and try to verify it, or tell you the real story if I couldn't verify the government state-owned media story. So, but that got me seriously demonetized in 2012. And ever since then, I haven't had a slightest clue what to do with my YouTube channel, because I don't know what you can talk about. And I imagine the Federal Reserve may be trending and be a good subject now. Even though they've shadow banned it, there'll still be a lot of searches and interest because of the stink about Google suppressing Mr. Corbett's work, who, although I don't personally like James Corbett, what I mean by that is I find his personality kind of grating. He kind of grates with mine a little bit, but his information is very good. I just don't like his delivery so much. But he did one, I guess, about the Federal Reserve that used to be number one if you typed in just Federal Reserve, and now you can't find it. So I don't know. So I what to do with the YouTube channel? I used to make money. I mean, not a whole lot. My peak was like, interestingly enough, once my own material got censored, my own material got me up to $300 a month, i.e., maintaining Google's YouTube standards, no copyright stuff, nothing like that. All my own creation and my own content got me up to 6,000 subscribers and $300 a month. And then they killed me. Oh, it wasn't about being conservative. If you're not watching, if you're watching this video later and you have the chat hidden because it freezes up the video, Nebnotrab, and I have no idea if I'm pronouncing that, said YouTube killing conservatives until Trump wins again. Well, that's true, but that wasn't why I got demonetized. I had a whole year's worth of work literally demonetized. Not just not advertiser friendly, demonetized. And what I was doing was I was covering Syria in a non-sensational manner. I love strategic war games. I've been a strategy war gamer my whole life, and I decided to take my knowledge of that and do an assessment of the Syrian situation with front lines, who's controlling what, who moves where, and I was very accurate and timely. I beat everybody to the punch when it came to reporting if a town changed hands or if any interesting action was going on, and I didn't re-upload videos of slaughters and war crimes. I wasn't talking about that. I was just talking about the strictly military aspects of it, as if you were looking at a battle map and you were in command of the whole thing, right? And what was going on and who was where and all that. And at the end, before all those videos got demonetized, I was up to adding 1,000 subscribers a week. The income was $300 a month. And then they demonetized them. It was a year's worth of over 100 videos tracking the whole thing. You could have made a history documentary out of it, an excellent one, and so that's what I've got to say about Google censorship. For me, it was more like not being in the box, not talking about the mainstream talking points the way they wanted me to. So I actually think the final straw when the big stink about ISIS was going on, and somebody's buying ISIS oil. Oh my God, it must be Assad. He's in a tooth and nail fight with him, and he's going to sell him some oil. Right? I don't think so. I mean, how they come up with this stuff is beyond me, and how people buy it without going, yeah, you're full of shit, is beyond me too. So anyway, I have all these battle maps that I've been doing for a year. I know where all the roads go, who controls what. what avenues are available to ship oil out of Syria. I know this really well. So do all my subscribers at the time, many of whom are probably not watching my videos anymore because I had to stop covering crap. I said the word. That means this video is going to be advertiser unfriendly, didn't it? I went and said it, didn't I? I said the country's name. Oh, well, maybe they've lifted the ban. I don't know. So anyway, there's only one place. There's only one place that oil could be shipped through with tanker trucks, and that was Turkey. So knowing this, I go Turkish oil transport companies, and I find out that the biggest one is owned by President Erdogan, who has 525 tanker trucks. And the guy just put in an order for a super tanker, which Turkey has absolutely no need for because they don't use or ship enough oil to need super tanker shipments. They're right next to oil producing countries. So I reported that. And 24 hours later, I was like demonetized. And that's what I meant by outside the box. You know, the mainstream media put up who's buying ISIS oil? So I answered the question. He's the only, and to put icing on it, the Russians just reported destroying 525 tanker trucks in Syria. Oh fuck! I said it again. Sorry about that. Sorry, Des. Apologizing to myself because I'm going to get myself demonetized because I'm saying bad words on YouTube. So but Fox was on board with all this. Don't think Fox is immune. Don't think it's just fucking liberals. It's not. It's fucking, conservatives are not fucking right wing. I'm a real conservative. Fucking keep the government out. Fucking stop spending all this fucking money on everything. Pay off the fucking debt. That's me. I'm a conservative. I don't know what you are. You see what I'm saying? It's not conservative to have military bases all over the fucking United States, all over the world. It's it's government. It's Republican. It's Democrat. It would be green, or it would be pink, or it would be the libertarians who already have a president. Boy, I trolled one of their videos really, really hard. The libertarians, right? And before it all started, they had an introductory speech from their, guess what, president. I'm sorry, I couldn't help it. I had to troll them. You guys already got a government. You got a president. What the fuck are you talking about, libertarian? It just backed up my feeling that, and I agree with the founding fathers, that government is a necessary evil. It actually is. Some form of it will exist no matter what, because people tend to band together. No, they trolled. They were really upset, and I was just trolling them really hard. But you've got a president. I thought you were libertarians. You're already elected bosses for yourself. What are you talking about? They were anarchists more. Libertarians are anarchists. Let's face it. The problem with the anarchy is that warlords can rise up, and if one rises up in the town next to you and wants what you've got in your town, then you're forced to get a warlord. You see what I mean? Yeah, and no matter what you do, people will group together to take your crap. And so if you don't want to keep your crap from getting taken, then you need to organize to protect your crap. So you're going to have it whether you want it or not. It's going to be there. Question, what form of government? Oh, by the way, I read comments in videos. Whenever I watch a video, I actually just go down and read the comments because I'm much more interested in what people are thinking than on a subject. I'll listen to who I'm looking at but before the end of the video, whatever video it is, I'll always be looking at the comments. And one thing I saw in the comments is that guy said his son came home and said that the teachers in school were telling him that the word globalist is anti-Semitic. So you can chew on that one. That's just a little piece of information. So whether it's true or not, well, it was in a YouTube comment section. I don't think the guy had any reason to lie. We know this kind of stuff is going on in the schools, you know. I should do a video on rats and how racist it is to interpret a comment about rats to be representing black people. What kind of racist do you have to be to hear the word rats and interpret it as black people? Think about that one. When the rats are real. Oh, it's so fun. I just the only explanation I have is America is on fucking drugs. Yep. Well, I suppose that Antifa was responsible for one of the shootings, I think, in Texas. I haven't verified that. It's not verified news. So, by the way, if I ever say anything that I don't believe to be true, and when I believe something to be true, you can pretty much bet it's going to be true. I don't know if that's true. So, I do know. Well, I don't know if this is true either because I don't have firsthand knowledge. Is that supposedly the shooter in Daytona was a leftist, but after all this, his Facebook changed to a righty. Now I don't know, if that's true or not. So with an S, I think it is SIUS. Yeah, maybe he didn't like who his sister was dating. Yeah, I know he shot his sister, which leads me to believe he went fucking bonkers over something his sister did. So since they scrubbed his YouTube page, from what I understand, they scrubbed his YouTube page. Or maybe that's just people on the right not wanting to admit a right sided person could go bonkers just as well as a left sided person could go bonkers. So, although I do think the left is more prone to violence, they're communists. So, yes, of course they're prone to violence. Communists scare the population into submission through violence, remote violence. It's the adherents of the ones in power that perform the violence. So I've already explained what the Federal Reserve is all about. But I guess this has turned into a chat about various other things and what's going on in the news. Uh, are these things real or Memorex? I don't know. I wasn't there. I think the Walmart thing was real. By the way, for those younger, Memorex used to be the top brand of cassette recording tapes. So if it is it real or Memorex is yeah, I got distracted by comments. Forgot what I was saying. But anyway, I think you got the point. Crucius, I think it's with an S. I don't know. I never said it. The guy looks Mediterranean. I saw a picture of him. I think it was Crusius. I don't know what race he is. Any of you guys ever seen a? Oh, I hate to call out this channel. I don't want to start a feud, so I don't think I will. But there's a lot of racist black channels, man. I mean it. Like I wouldn't. I subscribed to one of them, right? The guy used to be about police brutality, which is why I subscribed to him, right? But now he he like descended into absolute racism. And all white people hate blacks. They're all white supremacists. Blah 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 blah. On and on and on and on and on. And I've gone into the comment section and trolled him sometimes, and I get responses like, "This is a black channel. You're not welcome here. Why are you posting?" It's like, what? What do you mean it's a black channel? It's on YouTube, man. Fuck you. I'll comment if I want. And it just bugged me. So you supposedly want to be integrated, right? And you supposedly want white people to accept you as equals, which we do based on whether you're a fucking idiot or not, just like we base our judgment of white people. I believe there's a lot of fucking dumb white people too that I don't want to hang out with, and but the point is that to say I'm not welcome to comment on a channel because I'm white, that is like, I was like, what? You don't want to talk about any of this? Is that it? You just don't want to talk? Okay. Well, I still troll the channel now and then. Basically, just call him stupid because he is. Doesn't know his tenses. He's making enough money to hire a fucking editor to go, dude, you can't write like that. People will think you're stupid. I've tried to tell him, dude, fucking get an editor, man. People look at your headline, they know you're stupid. I mean, at least make them wait till you open your mouth before they figure out that you're an idiot. Oh, I don't know. Well, what I did was try to educate them about fake whites and who the real slavers were, the industrial slavers, the ship owners, who are the real culprits, and that, deaf ears, white people are evil, we all hate blacks, blah, 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 blah. How stupid, I had a black guy named Wes. I work at a corner store at night part-time, and I know all the people around. A black guy named Wes asked me if he thought there was going to be a race war, and I'm like, what? Why? I mean, what, you think fighting is going to solve anything? And you're 13% of the population, which is about the smallest demographic there is, and you want to have a race war? I don't think no, man, I don't think so. He asked me if I voted for Trump, and I'm all, I voted for him in the primaries. I live in Massachusetts, so there's no point going to the general, but I did my part to make sure he was the nominee. And I voted for Trump because of his stance on trade. Because if you can't solve one problem like the Federal Reserve, you have to solve what problems you can. And trade was an issue that can be solved with if you get someone up there who's determined to solve it at the expense of really powerful people. And that's why I respect Mr. Trump, President Trump. And plus he's fucking funnier than hell, and it's just great to watch a master troll in action, I must admit. And I know the left doesn't think so, but that's because he's the butt of the left is the butt of all of his jokes. So yeah, but they get so bent out of shape about a fucking Twitter tweet. I wish he'd start a YouTube channel, to tell you the truth. So the president of the United States channel. Turn it over to somebody else. Make it illegal to delete any of them or demonetize. Help pay the national debt. All funds go to straight to the Treasury, where they reduce the debt. So I love what Tulsi Gabbard is doing to Kamala Harris, because if I have a choice for who's may be president, i.e., who's going to be the Democratic nominee, make no mistake, the election isn't in the bag, and if you think so, it could lead you not to vote. So, Trump was popular enough to overcome what we all know happens. The Democrats pad votes, so, we don't know if that's going to happen again. Got a lot more illegals brought into even red states. Okay, bye, Nebnotrab. Oh, Anon Anarchy says even the elite, I'm going to have to sign off soon. I'm losing it here. Even the illegal aliens don't like Obama, LOL. No, he deported more illegal aliens than any other president before him, I think, if I recall correct, something like 3 million approximately. And for anybody who's on the left who might be still watching this video and hasn't shut it off and going, ah, yeah, he's more conservative than liberal, which is the actual truth. I'm center. I'm a true conservative. Don't spend money. Don't let people who are physically capable of working fucking go on welfare, things like that. Well, the problem is until we get more manufacturing going in this country, there aren't the jobs for everybody, and that's just a fact. And this is something you have to take into consideration too. If you were to drop the welfare safety nets, there aren't enough jobs. There really aren't, and crime will skyrocket. It's like when you got a hungry tiger in your backyard, probably a good idea to feed it, or you're going to be lunch. And it's kind of a hostage situation that way. But until the United States economy becomes much more vibrant than it is now, because you got to understand the Federal Reserve rate is still only 3%. A normal Federal Reserve rate when the economy is healthy is like 4.5. Treasury should be yielding around 5.5, 6%. That's the way it was in the 90s during the big, huge fucking boom. Interest rates were 4.5. The discount rate from the Fed 4.5%. I think the prime rate was something like I don't recall, but it was 8%, which is a lot higher than it is now. So because of that, you could actually get a return on fixed income. You could invest in treasuries and get a higher return. So the low interest rates spur spending as opposed to saving and investing. And if you were to drop the bottom out of the safety welfare nets right now, to repeat myself, you'd have a hungry tiger in your backyard with nothing to eat but you. And crime would skyrocket because there's not enough jobs for everybody. It's just that simple. So unless you want people to be starving to death and dying on the streets and the crime rate to skyrocket, you need to take care of people until the economy can absorb them. And we're not there yet. Maybe another 5 years of good trade policy and giving companies, for instance, tax advantages just to move back to get people working. That we need that. Automation is a problem too, and Yang is right about that. The problem with $1,000 a month for everybody is the same problem with currency out of thin air, inflation. Yeah, everybody gets 1,000 a month. In 3 months, that 1,000 isn't going to be any worth any more than you're getting now. In other words, that extra $1,000 a month would cost you a hell of a lot more than it gained you in any income you already had. So if you're making like 2,000 a month and you get an extra three, that's going to cause a outrageous inflation. And what'll happen is your $3,000 is going to go to a value of 25, more like 1,600. In other words, you not only lose the value of that 1,000, you'll lose value out of what you had before the 1,000 also, and your net loss will be a lot larger in a situation like that. That's very complex, by the way. Well, not really complex. If you're a physicist, you could compared to like physics, it's not complex, but the concept is a little complex. Inflation, people are going to get an extra $1,000 a month to go buy shit, and that's going to raise prices to the point where you see what I'm saying, that you'll be worse off than you were before because the value of your money will drop so harshly, and that will include the money that isn't part of that $1,000 a month, and will include your savings, your investments, et cetera, et cetera. Well, not your investments, because generally during inflation, stocks rise too, so you'd be countered there. So at any rate, wow, I've gone on for an hour and 17 minutes. How interesting, with only four people watching. I guess I had a need to talk, so I'm done talking pretty much. Um, if you're watching this video later, you can subscribe, like, to support the channel. You can watch for my next live stream, and I've got the super chat enabled, so you can tip me and all that. And if nothing else, I've hopefully been able to help you kill some time and not be too bored while you're watching. And we did cover a lot more subjects than the Federal Reserve, but that's the whole idea of a live chat. Get some response, answer, allow the conversation to be directed by the people watching the live stream, which I think is a superior way to do a live stream. So, anyway, this is Dave for Verified News, checking out.